Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and we're here today with special guest, Hozan Alan Senauke, who's here to share with us his new book, Turning Words, Transformative Encounters with Buddhist Teachers. Have you ever had an experience with a spiritual teacher that has transformed your life? It's so interesting how sometimes the most simplest phrases can change things around forever. For more than 35 years of practice in Zen and socially engaged Buddhism, Alan Senauke has had a range of remarkable encounters with Buddhist teachers and spiritual friends. So Hozan Alan Senauke is a Soto Zen priest, best-selling author, folk musician, the executive director of the Clearview Project, former executive director of the Buddhist Peace Fellowship, and vice abbot of the Berkeley Zen Center. He also oversees the Buddhist Humanitarian Project, an international initiative focused on responding to a refugee crisis. So let's welcome to the show, Hozan Alan Senauke.
Thank you, Marianne. Good to be here.
Well, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. What inspired you to write this?
Well, informally, I started just jotting down I should say, it's a collection of encounters and teaching stories that, for the most part, I have been exposed to, or that I heard or saw from Buddhist teachers over the course of nearly 40 years of practice. I just started informally writing down some of these stories. And then I started combing through my mind to find more of them, and also for each story to create some kind of context about what the learning point or what the turning point was for me in the particular encounter.
So, what do you mean by turning words? I think for a lot of people, they may have probably never heard that.
Sure. Um, Turning words are so in Zen literature. There's a great literature of what are called koans, Koans, and these are generally uh, enlightening encounters between teachers and students, and often the form of the koan, or the narrative, is the teacher says or does something that uh, catalyzes awakening for the student. And this is what you would call a turning word or turning act, that it turns them from their uh, habitual mind to their larger, open, receptive mind.
Would that be the same thing as when people have like an aha moment?
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
I think that kind of is exciting for a lot of people because I'm sure everyone can relate to that.
Yes. I mean, people have these, they have them all the time. Uh, and I just found a value in, for me at least, in taking stock of them. Uh, and also, it reveals something about the nature of the relationship between myself as a student and a teacher who may be a teacher, but also may be quite an ordinary person. Anybody, you don't have to be a Zen master to speak a turning word for somebody. This aha moments happen all the time.
Now, turning words, is this something that's been happening for quite a long time? Is there a history with this?
Well, it would go back. I think it's been happening from time immemorial. But in the Zen tradition, what you have, in the Zen tradition, you have a particular literature of these koans, or records of dialogues, and that would go back uh, to basically 6th or 7th century AD China. And of course, you have earlier expressions of this in the early Buddhist tradition, but it's certainly not endemic to Buddhism.
Yes, you hear about that type of a principle in many different religions and practices and beliefs.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there are all kinds of turning words that are offered uh, by Jesus in the New Testament. He's he's very skilled at that, at turning people around to their uh, religious essence or their religious nature.
So, from the stories that you tell in this book, what do you want readers to learn from this or take away from this?
I don't have anything in particular. I think uh, the attempt is to write these stories or tell these stories in such a way that possibly it communicates a turning moment for the reader. And that's the case with these koans or public records of Zen literature. Uh, the reason that we have them is because not not just to historically record what happened 1,000 years ago, but they're recorded because they seem to have a power to wake us up now. And I think that, it might be a bit of an exalted uh, ambition, but I hope that someone might find something in what I've written that resonates with them and helps them see things from a different perspective.
Well, you start off the book by talking about Isaac, and I'd love for you to share about that with us.
Sure, read a short portion of that. So one afternoon during a visit from my father, he and I, just the two of us, were driving north from Palo Alto, where he had been visiting some old friends. He was driving, and I was taking in the view. He turned to me and asked, "I want to know, are you happy?" This was one of those impossible questions. It stung me because, first, I had no answer, and second, the answer was no. I don't remember my exact response, but it was something to the effect that happiness was not my standard or goal in life. I said, being happy is not important to me. I want to be of use. This is how I want to live. But his question had lingered for the last 50 years. Are you happy? The impact of my father's words were not sudden. The turning came very slowly until I understood that we were both right. The point is to find happiness in the act of serving others. If joy or happiness is absent, then being of use is marked with a kind of grim determination. If utility is missing from happiness, then it is easy to fall into a kind of soft-focused narcissism. Fortunately, he let me figure this out for myself. Actually, I'm not sure he could have articulated how this all fit together, but I am grateful for the leading question. So that was an important moment for me. And that really, it took many years to figure out, but the words of that encounter stayed with me that whole time.
That's very powerful. What an experience.
Yes. Yeah. So sometimes, it's not that the turning is immediate. Sometimes somebody will plant a seed and it's not, he wasn't intentionally planting a seed. He wanted to know. He sensed that I wasn't happy. And he wanted to know if I was or what I thought about it. And that was a very difficult question for me. But I didn't forget it. Kind of let it work on me for all those years.
What a just a good place to come from, because I think a lot of times when people get into service, happiness and or taking care of themselves seem to fall by the wayside.
Well, they fall by the wayside because, unfortunately, in our culture, um, often the environment of service is so pressurized, uh, and we are driven uh, often because just those that environment is really difficult, and there's more to do than one person can do. There's more suffering around than one can conceivably uh, eliminate. It's all around us. And if you enter service with that on your shoulders, your your back is going to break.
Yeah, I know many people who work in the nonprofit sector, and they are just beyond overwhelmed.
Right. And the same thing about, people who've worked in the health sector during the pandemic. It's quite overwhelming. And uh, happiness itself may not be the entire answer either. But uh, if your work is doesn't have some component of that, you're really pretty likely to burn out.
So when you talk about happiness, is that something that's different for everybody?
That's an interesting question. I don't. I think that the particularities may be different for everybody, but uh, my experience of meeting teachers in a variety of traditions, including ones that are not necessarily religious, is that what I see is there's a common quality of lightness that is visible in how they move, in how they relate to people, in also in how they respond to their own shortcomings and errors. So part of the lightness that I find increasing within myself is where in younger days, if I made a mistake, I would judge myself for that. I would get caught in recriminations and various forms of negativity. Whereas now, if I make a simple mistake that doesn't have any real negative impact on another being, and it's just a mistake, uh, then I can laugh at myself. I can be amused by myself, and I can say if I'm serving as a priest in the Zendo, and we have various forms as you do in any kind of liturgical tradition, and I miss something, uh, I am somewhat bemused, and I might reflect, well, where was I when say I forgot something? I forgot to do something. It's like, where was my mind at that moment? So it's instructive, but it's not judgmental or harsh.
What a nice place to come from because, my goodness, I
It,
think a lot of people have that negative mindset that is just on autopilot.
right. And they're driven by, I mean, some people are driven by a sense of perfectionism. And that's a particular kind of illness, if you will. And there are other illnesses, but that was something I had to deal with, and it relates uh, to another story in the book uh, where my long-term teacher, uh, Sojan Weitzman Roshi, uh, spoke to me not long after I had started to practice. So this was in the middle 1980s, and he was the abbot and teacher of Berkeley Zen Center for more than 50 years. He died in January of 2021. But anyway, this is going back to the middle 1980s, and he just watched me for a while, for a long time, for a year, and then one day in our kind of formal interview process that we have, a meeting with a teacher, he just said, "You should let things fall apart." And that was a turning word for me. I'll never forget the impact of that, and I'll never forget those words. And I keep working with them to understand what does that mean? On one sense, what he was saying was, you can't hold things together in yourself or in your social environment by sheer force of will. Things are going to fall apart. And you have to accept that. On the other hand, each of us has to be responsible for ourselves, and we have to understand what it is, where we should apply ourselves to hold things together and where we should let go. It's a subtle point the more you investigate it. And I would say, and again, this is another story in the book. At one point, he said, this is before the pandemic, he was talking about our community, which is a wonderful community here at the Berkeley Zen Center. And it's survived the pandemic and survived Sojin's illness and death and transition in leadership. But well before the pandemic, he sort of looked around one day in a lecture and said, everything is going great here, but in a moment it can just go psh, and disappear. And, we understood what he was saying, but it seemed our practice and our way of doing things seemed so established. And then the pandemic came and it all went away, and we had to start from scratch to figure out what worked. And so, things can fall apart in a moment. There's no way we could have resisted that.
Does falling apart, letting things fall apart, also kind of invite the readers and our listeners to give up some of that control or perfectionism as well?
Yes. Yeah, I think it means to give up, to recognize that ultimately one is not in control and that your perfectionism isn't going to get you through. And the other side of that is, in a sense, to recognize that everything that you do makes a difference, that you have a sense of broad responsibility for the world. And so that's kind of a dynamic or spiritual tension that one lives with. But trying to control things is not going to work.
In your book, you talk about how you had this topic that was on your mind for 20 years, and it's talking about what is Buddhism. And I'd love for you to expand on that for our listeners.
Sure. I began to practice Zen coming out of the psychedelic era in the mid to late 60s. And a group of us came out to California in the summer of 1968. And we had read a little about Zen. We had read the recently published book, Three Pillars of Zen by Philip Kapleau, and looked for a Zen center. And we found one. We were staying in Berkeley for a couple of months, and we found the Berkeley Zen Center and also San Francisco Zen Center. And we took up practice in that summer of 1968, and I went back east with the intention to continue the practice, and I didn't. I mean, I was 19 years old, or I was 20 years old, and the world was wild. The country was in incredible turmoil. and political turmoil and social turmoil. And those things were overwhelming forces in my life. So I wasn't able to continue Zen practice then. But I had been introduced to it, had been given rudimentary instruction, and we sat pretty steadily through that summer when we were out here. But then when I returned, I couldn't sustain it. And yet that seed had been planted. And I think the story that I tell, uh, I had friends shortly after and going into the 1970s and continuing who were students of the very well-known Tibetan teacher Chogyam Trungpa. And these were good friends of mine. And I wasn't in discussion with them, but I would hear about the fact that they had taken up Buddhist practice with Trungpa. And you'd hear these wild stories about just a lot of drinking and partying and all kinds of manifestations of the life at the time, of hippie life kind of melded with Buddhist life and crazy wisdom. And it was not what I had experienced or not what I thought was Buddhism. And I kept asking, is this Buddhism? Is this Buddhism? And what is it? What's happening there? And I feel a debt to Trungpa because something about the practice that oriented itself around him sort of nurtured or watered that seed that was in my consciousness about the practice of Buddhism. And just holding that question, is this Buddhism, kept that seed alive and growing slowly until it was ready to germinate by my resumption of practice in the mid-1980s. Yeah, Buddhism can take many different forms, and I'm not advocating one over the other, but I also was incredibly lucky that I came to this place the first time in 1968, and when the circumstances of my life changed, and I was again looking for some kind of practice, I happened to be back here in Berkeley, and that time in the 80s when I walked onto the grounds here at Berkeley Zen Center, I felt home, and I was home, and I've been living here for more than 37 years.
One of my favorite places, and I can just understand why you're there. My goodness, what such great energy that place has.
Yeah, it's wonderful. We have a beautiful zendo that is meditation hall that is just taken care of impeccably every day. So this morning I was in the zendo from 6 a.m, and after we have our morning practice and a short chanting service, there's about 10 minutes of community work, basically straightening, dusting, cleaning the floors, taking care of the altar, just taking care of the space. And so it's always in a place to receive people. And we actually have, during weekdays, we have 4 periods of meditation a day. And then there are different programs on weekends. So it's quite a busy place.
During your journey through meditations and practice, did you ever have a point that you felt that something was missing?
Well, it's interesting. It's an interesting question because our tradition draws very heavily from the 13th century Zen master Eihei Dogen, who was a person who largely formulated and formalized what has become the tradition of Soto Zen Buddhism. And in one of his famous writings, there's a line that says, "When Dharma fills your body and mind, you realize that something is missing." So there's always something missing. And the deeper you are in your spiritual practice, the more you come to understand that things that things are impermanent, they're changing all the time. And what's missing, if you like, is permanence. We want to nail things down. We want things to last forever. And what we really understand when we dig into Buddhist practice is that everything is of a nature to change. Certainly we understand this as we reckon with our bodies over time. But bodies change, relationship changes, governments change, the climate changes. So what's missing is some point of stasis, if you will. So that's a philosophical answer to your question. For me, yes, I often come to the place where I feel something is missing. And I think we're encouraged to have faith in the practice and to do this practice, in a sense, for the sake of the practice itself. So not to set out a goal and not to expect that one day miraculously everything is going to change and all your problems are going to go away. That's not going to happen. What can happen is that you can understand the broader context of change and accept that things change, accept that something's missing. So if I were to finish that statement by Master Dogen, it says, when Dharma fills your body and mind, in other words, when you're enlightened, you realize that something is missing. And I would add, and that's just fine. So to recognize your imperfections, to recognize your shortcomings or your fading abilities in certain areas. Let me just step back a second and go to basic Buddhism. In the earliest teachings, there's what's called 3 marks of existence. So these are 3 characteristics of our lives. This is from the Buddhist teaching. One mark is that things are impermanent. The second mark is the mark of what's called non-self, which means that everything and every person is the intersection of infinite causes and conditions. Just as you cannot point to any one part of an automobile and say that's a car. It's the whole of the body, the engine, the tires, and so forth that come together to make what we call a car. There's no essential carness. And so anyway, the third point in the traditional teaching is dukkha, or suffering. So the three marks are impermanence, non-self, and suffering. Well, in later Mahayana Buddhist tradition, you have the first two marks, and the third mark is, instead of suffering, it's nirvana. And what this says to me is that either one, that your attitude towards impermanence and non-self is the determinant of whether you are suffering or whether you feel free. And so it's really a matter of a point of view. So I don't know, that's a long way around to answer your question.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that you went into that discussion because
Yeah.
I think it opens the door for so many people. And especially when we look at what's our practice in more of a mindful way, how does mindfulness really work with our practice?
Well, I think that one of the things I see is that there's often a misconception of what Buddhist mindfulness is. And that conception is often that means to just be aware of the present moment, and of the present moment, which then becomes the next present moment. It's just what sometimes is called bare awareness. And to me, that's an incomplete vision of mindfulness. So traditionally, there are four foundations of mindfulness. You're mindful of your body, which means you're looking at the conditions of your body, your posture, also your health, and so forth. You're mindful of your breath, which is the most basic and accessible point of access for meditation. Just being mindful, being attentive to your breath, which is something we do that determines whether we are alive or not. The third foundation is to be mindful of the mind, of your activities, your thoughts, your feelings, and just notice the flow of them arising and falling away. Then the fourth foundation is interesting because it moves away from just this experience of bare awareness, whether it's awareness of your body, your breath, or your mind. It's the fourth foundation is called mindful of the dharmas. And really what this means is being mindful of a number of traditional meditation systems that the Buddha teaches. So he teaches the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, and other systems like the hindrances and the factors of enlightenment. And I'm not going to go into all of that now, but what that means to me is it's like putting in place a set of lenses through which you look at your thoughts and your experience. So it's not just a bare awareness, it's actually the application of Buddhist teachings. So for example, if you're really angry, which is something that is inevitably going to arise for all of us, then there are Buddhist teachings that are remedial. They're Buddhist teachings in that would fit into that fourth foundation of mindfulness that you can use to apply to that anger to heal it, to cool it. So it's not just letting things be exactly what they are. Sometimes it's for the sake of taking care of oneself and taking care of others, to bring these lenses or these tools to bear on our experience. And I think this is something that we learn to do because the practice itself is about the continuing investigation of who I am.
You have so many wonderful stories that encompass turning words. What are a couple that you'd like to share with us?
Let me share something from my wife. Lori is my teacher. Is one of my teachers, and there are moments that we have, we talk about all the time. I'm going to sort of go through two of these pieces shortly. So one is called The Nature of Suffering. When I rant about the conditions of my life or somebody's actions towards me or towards another, Lori, my wife, has a simple and irrefutable response. You are suffering because you want things to be different from how they are. This is the boiled down essence of dukkha, of suffering. Still, I seem to need to do a bit of ranting from time to time, not to convince Lori that I am correct in my view, not to convince myself, but just to hear myself say the words, to let the anger vent properly. This anger or dissatisfaction has power when it bounces around within me. Expressed in words, the power dissipates. An hour later, I can be back at zero. So this teaching, you are suffering because you want things to be different from how they are. That is a very useful way of looking at suffering. And I think when we examine our lives, we find this to be painfully true. And realizing that truth can give us some breathing room. And this is really important. So just to set a context, I've been working with something that the wonderful lay teacher Thich Nhat Hanh shared with us, the idea of a North Star precept. In other words, instead of having a lot of precepts or rules, to see what boils down to be the precept or the teaching that you return to as a North Star, so that you can find your position and you can find your grounding. So this is about that process for me. And again, this is something that Lori and I sort of came up with, or she came up with, but we share. There are always people in our lives whose needs appear overwhelming. Sometimes those needs are overwhelming for the person experiencing them and for others who try to help them meet those needs. Friends, neighbors, loved ones knock on our door looking for assistance of various kinds at various times. Within our limited material means, we offer what we can, even when it is not nearly enough. But we can always, or almost always, give our care and attention. We can accompany people. We can listen. Lori came up with this phrase, words we can share explicitly or implicitly. I will not abandon you. This is what Thich Nhat Hanh describes as a North Star precept, a principle we have come to in our own words that expresses the Bodhisattva's vow to awaken with all beings. I will not abandon you. I may not be able to give you all that you need or think you need, but I will not turn away from you. In the hardest times, in the middle of the night, you can call me, and I will do my best to hold your grief and fear. At least I can do that.
That is so powerful. It's a very powerful to have that statement to really kind of stay on it. Lori also talks about everything is perfect. And was really interested in that.
Lori and I were discussing a Zen talk where I heard the proposition that everything is perfect, which did not sit easily with me. Lori proposed an alternative formulation. This moment has in it everything I need in order to wake up. Yes. Yeah, that's good. It's, I think there's an idealization that one falls into, and you hear it kind of as a cliche in Buddhism. Everything is perfect just as it is. Well, I don't think so. I think it's enough to say, as soon as you say perfect, then you're redefining the way things are. I think it's perhaps sufficient to say everything is as it is. This is how it is at this moment. And then to go to the proposition that Lori offered, and this moment has everything that is needed in order for me to wake up. And that's more resonant. That resonates with me in a way that everything is perfect doesn't. As soon as I say everything is perfect, or as soon as I hear everything is perfect, then there's a question or a doubt that arises in me. So is it really perfect, or am I not capable of seeing the perfection of this moment? And then all kinds of circuitous habits of thought kick in. Whereas to consider that this moment has exactly what is needed for me to wake up, that raises a much more fruitful and generative question. What can I learn from this moment? Whether it's pleasurable or unpleasurable, whether it's joyful, whether it's scary, this moment, there's something I can learn here. This moment can be my teacher if I let it. I think that's the implication of that.
Well, I appreciate you going through that with us, because I think that I've heard that many times, that the moment we're in is perfect. And I think for a lot of people, it may be kind of a leap for them if they're feeling like their world is kind of crashing down around them.
Right. And it's, you can always learn from your world, but sometimes you really need to do something to work with it, to help it. Circumstances are not perfect. There are circumstances that each of us is responsible for that cause suffering for other beings. And that's not necessarily perfect for them, nor is it perfect for us. But the thing about, and this gets back to say that everything is perfect can also lead one to a kind of passivity or resignation. And that's not, to me, that's not the world of Buddhist practice. There's hanging over my head at this moment, there's a piece from Thich Nhat Hanh that's called "Mindfulness Must Be Engaged." He said, once there is seeing in mindfulness, there must be acting. Otherwise, what is the purpose of seeing? He said, we must be aware of the real problems of the world, Then with mindfulness, we will not know what to do and what not to do to be of help. So it's not about passivity or resignation. It's really about it is there about how to serve others.
Really getting into that action segment
Yes.
and off the cushion.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, to me, the meditation hall or the Zendo, it's a kind of laboratory. And what we do when we're sitting in Zazen meditation is we're encountering ourselves really deeply and in an environment that is hopefully safe, relatively quiet, uh, minimal stimulation. And so we have enough, uh, we can really pay attention to what is arising within our bodies and minds without all the background noise. But that's not the purpose. The purpose is, how do I live? And so there's a wonderful practice that we do, in many meditation halls. When you're leaving the meditation hall, uh, at the doorway, you turn back towards the altar and bow to the altar and then leave. We don't do that in Berkeley Zen Center. What we do is we get to the threshold of the door and we give a small bow before and then step over the threshold. The small bow out, towards the door, not towards the altar. And the implication of that is that we are actually taking our meditation into the world. It's not like it ends at the doorstep. We cultivate it inside the meditation hall, but then, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, if there's a seeing that you do within the meditation hall, there must be acting, and the acting is what we bring forward into the rest of our life.
Well, Alan, your book, Turning Words, I found to be just so empowering.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, yes, my goodness. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about your work?
2 places, and there's berkeleyzencenter.org, all one word, berkeleyzencenter.org, and that's we have meditation. We have online meditation every day, as well as in person. If you're here and can come, please come. If you can tune in online, please join us. And we have people almost every day from different parts of the world. We have there's a small group of people from South India who are sitting zazen with us every day. My own engaged Buddhist work you can find at clearviewproject.org. That's all one word, clearviewproject.org. And basically, I've been doing engaged Buddhist work in Burma and India and other locations I've been doing that for more than 30 years. And Clearview Project has been around now for 15 years. And we offer Buddhist-based humanitarian relief and also training in areas, in communities of great need. And I'd be happy to, I'll also include with you my email address, and I'm happy to hear from anyone and entertain any questions that people might have.
With the meditation practice you do, that's open, is that something that's open to all levels of people
Yes.
in meditation?
Yes. Yeah. And we do have meditation instruction here at Berkeley Zen Center every Saturday morning. at I think at 8:40 Pacific time, and there are also on the Berkeley Zen Center website there's some videos and instruction from meditation instruction by my teacher Sojin Roshi. Fantastic video, and then also something from me. So that's available as well.
Well, Alan, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Well, thank you so much, Marianne. I'm really honored to do that.
Well, thank you, Hozan Alan Senauke. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Turning Words: Transformative Encounters with Buddhist Teachers. Turning Words is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And if you don't see it on the shelf, ask for them to order. Or remember, support our indie bookstores. You can also purchase this book directly from the publisher at Shambhala. That's shambhala.com. Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick message from our sponsors. We'll be right back after these messages.
Are you a coffee lover who wants to make a difference? Look no further than Fire Department Coffee, a veteran-owned business that gives back to support first responders in need. Each batch of coffee is freshly roasted right here in the USA by a dedicated team of first responders and coffee experts. So when you enjoy a cup of Fire Department coffee, you're not only drinking high-quality coffee, you're supporting members of your community. Start your day with a coffee that gives back. Visit firedepartmentcoffee.com. That's fire, D-E-P-T, coffee.com.
Are you looking to untangle life's riddles? Discover the profound teachings of Dr. Shai Tabali, renowned philosopher, best-selling author, and your guide to self-empowerment. With methods that harmonize psychological and spiritual principles, Dr. Tabali's wisdom offers a pathway to holistic transformation. Take that first step today and join thousands globally and embrace the journey to higher consciousness. Visit shaitabali.com, that's SHAITUBALI.com now.
Hello, Dr. Cutler here. Do you experience bloating, heartburn, food craving, bowel irregularity, food sensitivities, weight issues? If you do not digest your food, you may be deficient in macronutrients, which your body needs for optimal health. DrEllenCutler.com teaches that this is an enzyme deficiency. I believe the most important supplement is a full-spectrum digestive enzyme, Dr. Ellen's Way Digestive Enzymes. Hear more about it at DrEllenCutler.com.
Are you chasing profitability yet losing fulfillment? Let me introduce you to your solution, the Relaunch Company. I'm Hillary DeCesar, an entrepreneurial performance coach, fearless leader of the Relaunch Company, here to help put the pedal to the metal and relaunch your business your way. Visit www.therelaunch.com. Take the free quiz to learn 3 steps towards waving goodbye to burnout and hello to success.
The book Terminal Cancer is a Misdiagnosis, authored by Danny Carroll, is on sale at Amazon now. Licensed psychologist and psychotherapist Tessa Antiojon-Guerra commented, "This is one of the most empowering books on the topic of cancer you will ever read." Award-winning author T.L. Needham commented, "This recommended book can be understood by anyone seeking answers, hope, and alternatives to a terminal diagnosis. Buy it now on Amazon.com.
Are you feeling disconnected from your life and your body as a woman? Do you feel numb emotionally and/or sexually and just not sure how to feel really alive again, or maybe for the first time? Are you struggling with body and self-acceptance, especially during menopause? If you'd like to reclaim your feminine and learn more about women and gynecology and how it can help empower your life, contact Gina Cloud at www.ginacloud.com.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. teaching beyond conventional wisdom. Her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.